We have been trying to understand perfect competition in the short run, and we have looked at this from the perspective of total concept, total revenue, total cost, and so on. We have also looked at this from the perspective of average revenue, average cost, and so on. Now what we do is we look at this from the perspective of the marginal concept. We know what is MR, which stands for marginal revenue, and how do we calculate this? It is simply change in total revenue divided by change in quantity, or essentially what this MR tells us is the money that the firm receives by selling an additional unit of output. So it'll tell you how much was the 7th unit of output sold for, how much was the 9th unit of output sold for, and so on. We also know what is marginal cost. It is the cost of producing that extra unit of output, the 7th unit or the 9th unit of output. Now let us look at the difference between MR and MC. MR is the money that flows into the firm by selling an extra unit of output, and MC is the cost of producing that extra unit of output. And the difference between these two will in a way reflect the profit made by producing and selling an additional unit of output. Or in other words, the difference between MR and MC can be called marginal profits. Now this table has information on quantity, total revenue, and total cost and total profits, something we have been using in the past two videos or two previous videos. Now look at the following. Based on total revenue figures, we can calculate marginal revenue. How do we do that? Suppose the firm produces no output and then decides to produce 1 unit of output. What happens to total revenue? It increases from 0 to 25. So change in total revenue is 25. How much is change in output? It is 1 minus 0, so 25. So we get this marginal revenue figure. As in the past, just ignore this figure relating to 0 level of output. Now the firm has already produced 1 unit of output and decides to produce the 2nd unit of output. What revenue does it receive by selling this 2nd unit of output? It will be 50 minus 25, which is 25, divided by 2 minus 1, which is 1, or this will equal 25. And in this way we can figure out marginal revenue at different levels of output. Note, we are looking at perfect competition where each firm is a price taker, and I had shown on the second last video that if a firm is a price taker, in that case price will equal marginal revenue, and that is what we find. Price of each sweater is $25, so the marginal revenue associated is also $25. Now let us look at the cost side. The firm decides to move from 0 to 1 level of output. How much is the change in total cost? It is 45 minus 22, which will give us 23, and divide that by 1 minus 0, the change in output, and you get marginal cost figure. What is the marginal cost of producing the 2nd unit of output? Change in total cost, 66 minus 45 divided by 2 minus 1, and this will give us 21. And in this way we calculate the marginal cost of production. Now look at the following. In the last column, let's try to figure out how much profit is made by the firm by selling an additional unit of output. For example, if when the firm sells the 1st unit of output, the money it receives is $25 from customers. How much does it cost for it to produce it? $23. And what is the difference between the two? It is plus 2. And so by selling the 1st unit of output, the firm makes a profit of $2. What about the 2nd unit? Marginal revenue is still 25. How much is marginal cost? It is 21. So the profit made by the firm by selling the second unit is $4. Look at the third unit, and after this you can complete this column. Marginal revenue received by selling the third unit of output is 25, and it cost the firm $19 to produce the third unit of output. So what is the profit made by the firm from the third unit of output? It is $6. And in this way you can complete this table. Now note, when the firm produced nothing, it incurred a cost which is called the fixed cost, and so the firm started with a loss of $22. By selling the first unit of output, it made a profit of $2 from the first unit of output. So what happened to the total losses? They reduced by how much? $2. Now look at the second unit of output. The firm makes a profit of $4 from the second unit of output. And what has happened to total losses? They have fallen from $20 to $16. So what you find is, as long as the firm is making a positive profit by selling an additional unit of output, it'll either cut down on losses or increase total profits. And that's what we find through this relationship. What we have learned from the previous table is the following. If marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, producing an additional unit of output adds to total profits or it reduces total losses. This is something I haven't shown, but you can figure this out by working through that table, and that is, if the money that the firm receives by selling a good is less than what it costs to produce it, so by producing and selling that good, what will happen is it will either reduce total profits or increase total losses. So what would you tell businesses based on these marginal decisions? You would tell the businesses, if MR is greater than MC, or if the firm makes a profit by selling that additional unit of output, the firm should go ahead and produce and sell that particular unit of output. If on the other hand the firm incurs a loss by producing and selling this extra unit of output, you will tell the firm, don't do it. Why? Because that extra unit of output is increasing your losses or reducing your total profits. Now on this chart, what I have done is I have drawn the MR curve and the MC curve and also the total profits, and all these have been plotted against total output. So on the vertical axis, what you have are financial variables. Now we know for this firm, which is a price taker, price is the same thing as average revenue, which is the same thing as marginal revenue. And since price is fixed at $25, what you have is a horizontal line. And then based on the marginal cost numbers, what I have done is I've drawn the marginal cost curve. And on this one, I've also superimposed the total profits curve. Now look at the following. If you look at this particular zone and look at the relationship between MR and MC, here what you find is MR is greater than MC. And when MR is greater than MC, what is happening is you are either reducing total losses or increasing total profits. And that's what you find when you look at this movement of total profits from here. It goes on increasing, and now look at, let me use a different color. Now look at this part. What you find is here MR is less than MC. And so what has happened to total profits? You see they have started to decline from this point onwards. And so here you see the relationship between MR, MC and total profits. Now look at this point here. At this point, MR equals MC. And this is where you find the firm is making maximum total profits. And so this must be the point of equilibrium where MR equals MC. Another thing you find here is at this point MC intersects MR from below. MR, I'll just write below, from below. And so this is the point of equilibrium or the best point for the firm, and that is where MR equals MC and MC intersects MR from below. So this in a way becomes the condition for equilibrium. So based off the previous diagram, I've written down the condition for equilibrium, and this applies not just for under perfect competition, it also applies to other market conditions. So these are very general conditions for equilibrium. And the first condition we require is MR must equal MC, and this is called the necessary condition for equilibrium. And then we also require that MC curve intersects the MR curve from below, and this is called the sufficient condition for equilibrium. And so when both these are met, the firm is at its best point, and that is the equilibrium point.